Hello guys, how are you all doing? On today's tutorial, you will learn how to use CSS transitions for web apps that has client-side rendering and also for web applications that have server-side rendering, which makes it a little easier. But either way, you will learn when to use certain animations in order to have the best experience for your users. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's first compare a web app that doesn't have any CSS transitions and one that has CSS transition and also it has skeletons. So let me just show you. I'm going to be navigating through each web app. By the way, this is client-side render. As you can see, whenever we get into the page, we make the request and we render the information. But as you can see, you have the static information there. And then, the rest of the information gets populated. Now, let's compare it with a web app that has CSS transitions plus skeletons. Now, if I click here, as you can see, we have the skeleton. We see that the data loading smoothly. And also we have CSS transitions. So it feels like we are under the same page almost. It's not like we're changing of pages. Now, not only we have client-side rendering, but I also wanted to show you how server-side rendering looks like. For server-side rendering, the data is already there. The data is already in the HTML. So as you can see, it's super smooth. We don't even have skeletons. That data is already loaded. So we just need to go to the page and that is there. It's not like we need to get into the page and then we need to make the request to a server. That's the cool thing about server-side rendering, and it's super useful for SEO and also cool animations like transition animation between two pages, which is slightly harder for client-side renderings web applications. But there are some tricks that we can do in order to have a proper experience for the user. Now, let me show you the big difference. Let's change the speed of the internet of the user. So I'm going to change to a 3G signal. And this is where things get definitely not pretty for a site that doesn't have any transitions. So now I can click here. It takes some time. It shows me the static information and it then renders the information. The experience is just terrible. It's obviously it's slow, but this is how it could happen for the user. They could see it like this. And even though we can have a bad internet here also, as you can see 3G, let me just show you how this looks like whenever you have set up CSS transitions and also skeletons. You definitely, the user is definitely aware that the information is loading. The user, whenever they go into the page, even though it's slow, they can see some, something that is happening, which makes the experience way, way better. Now, once again, for server-side rendering, it's automatic. We don't need to wait as much time as client-side rendering. So that's the cool thing. Now, let's go to the next phase. How do CSS transitions work? And let me just show you how to set them up in Webflow. So I have completely removed the CSS transitions that I had on this site. And let me just publish. So if I refresh here, you will see that whenever I go into between pages, I just jump into the pages. There's no animation really happening. Obviously, I have a good experience because I set up some, skeletons and some animations to load the information, which looks nice. But this is server-side rendering data. And whenever I click here, I will go into this specific CMS item page. So if I click here, as you can see, we're jumping into the page. There's no animations. So the way that we enable CSS animations, view transitions, is I click here let me just go to my global styles settings. And let me just paste this CSS right here. So it's just as simple as adding this text, add view dash transition, open brackets, navigation auto. This will enable the default animation that CSS transitions has. So if I save and close and then I publish, you will see that now we have a fade in and a fade out. It's barely noticeable, but if I slow the animation to 10%, you can see the animation easier. Now let's take things to the next level, or let me explain you how the CSS transitions work. So the way that this works is that CSS, it takes a screenshot of the browser and it takes me into the next page. And whenever it's going to the next page, it already has the screenshot of the browser, and we can make some animations there. We can animate the elements of that screenshot. It's not obviously a screenshot, it's not an image, but we can animate those things in order to align them with the elements from the next page. So I have an example here with the titles. And before I set up custom animation, I need to disable the default animations that CSS has. So what I'm going to do is simple as this. Just going to add this CSS to my site. I'm going to affect the view transition alt, which is, the pages that we're leaving. And this is the new page where we're going, where we have clicked into. And we are setting up the animation to be none. So if I save and close this and then publish, as you can see, no animation anymore. Wait, did I save this? Yes, save and close. Maybe Webflow didn't publish it. Sometimes it happens. Let me click here. Yes, we're jumping again. Perfect. So the animations have been disabled. Now let's continue, and let me show you how to set up a custom animation for any element. So let me just show you a basic scenario first. Let's go to one of these pages, and let's imagine that I want to only animate the title here. As also, in this scenario, we show this for a brief of a second, and then we render this information. The only thing that we should animate, though, it's the title. So let me just show you how this works. So first, what we need to do is give our item, or the item that we want to affect, an animation name. So first, what we are doing is, and by the way, this animation name needs to be unique. So as well as you can see, the property is view transition name, and the name that I'm setting is title. This has to be unique. This cannot be reused for other elements, because if we have two elements with the same view transition name, the animation won't work. So I have the H1, which is unique on the site, and I'm only affecting one item, right? Which is totally fine. But if I have, let's say I want to affect the paragraph, and I have two paragraphs on my site, this won't work. So as I know this element is unique, I can set up this, view transition name CSS. Now let's continue. Let's go now and let me show you how, animations work. So I can do things while I'm on the old view or on the new view. So here, as you can see, I have this view transition alt that I'm affecting the title, that the animation name, that, the view transition name that I say to my item, and then setting up the animation. I'm running a certain animation that I haven't set yet, which will last 250 milliseconds with this easing, and this will go forward. This will move forward. And this is for the old setup. So what I need to do is, whenever I'm leaving the page, obviously I need to make the current H1 transparent, and then I need to display the new one, right? And maybe with a smooth animation, slightly longer, so we can have, a cool, opacity from 0 to 100 animation, and maybe moving it on the y-axis, so it moves up a little, right? Which is a pretty common animation for titles or on, really basic websites. So let me now copy the CSS that I have here, and let me paste this. So in here, what we're doing is we're just setting up this basic easing for this variable right here. We're creating a variable that will contain the value of an easing, and then we're just setting up the animation. So title fade out, this will pretty much just take the element from whatever opacity to 0, and now with title rising, this animation that we're creating right here, we are taking the element from opacity of 0 to opacity of 1. Not only that, we are moving the title from the bottom of 12 pixels to their current position. So pretty straightforward, I'm going to save and close this. I'm going to publish, and you will see that now we have a basic animation for our titles. As you can see now, we have that, small animation. Obviously, if I want to show it better, I can go once again to animations, make it 25%. And as you can see that animation. By the way, something that I noticed, and this is something that you need to be aware of, is that whenever you click on an item and that view CSS transition on a link, sorry, and the view CSS transition is running, I'm not able to click on anything. Like if I click here, as you can see, the link doesn't work until the animation finishes, and I finally see the hover effect. So as I said, it's kind of like a screenshot that it takes from the first page, and it doesn't allow you to make clicks on anything until the animation has finished. So you need to make sure that these animations are pretty short. Maybe 500 milliseconds is too long whenever the text is getting here. Obviously, I have it super slow. This is just 25% speed. If I have set it up to 100% speed, I barely notice, that experience. But this is something that you must be aware of. Now, let's continue and let's create custom animations or better view transitions that will make, the experience fantastic for users. Now, let's connect two items that have a different style from two pages, but that have the same view transition name that will generate a really good effect that CSS generates by default. So let me just show you. This example definitely works better with server-side rendering information. If it's client-side rendering, it won't work properly. So let me show you how this works with the CMS from Webflow. So I have this image, and I'm going to set it up. Sorry, this is an attribute here. I'm going to set up view transition name. Oh, sorry, view transition time, not timeline. View transition name of image. And I will do the same for the page in the CMS, this individual page. So let's go to style, and I already had it set it up, view transition name. So let me show you how this generates a really cool animation, which is super simple to do. Like it's super straightforward. Obviously, we can make some tweaks and there in order to make it better, but let me just show you how this works by default. So I'm clicking here, and it's super cool how we can get that animation. It's, as you can see, the CSS is aware of that we are animating this item. So it's taking the size of the item from the previous, item, and it's going to the next one, which it's super cool. Pretty straightforward to build, which is super nice. Super nice. So that's how you can create this type of animations. Now this doesn't work properly, as I said, for client-side rendering. Why? We already had this information here. This is an HTML static page, because it's obviously it comes from the CMS from Webflow, but it's a static. This data was already rendered in the HTML. Whenever we are talking about client-side rendering, as you can see, we're triggering the request once we get there. So if we don't have the image already preloaded, these animations don't really work proper here. So in order to make a decent animation with client-side rendering, I recommend to cover things, or to change the opacity to 0 of elements. Whenever you cover things, you won't see any flickering of data loading, and you can create cool animations let me just show you an example here. So here what we are going to do is create an opacity animation. We will set the opacity by default of the next page to be 0 in order to create a really cool or simple basic animation. Let me just show you. So let's first enable, I think we have enabled GIS already as we have these animations. So let's create an animation here. And let's go into this static page. And we are going to create an animation on page load. Page load. We're going to set a custom animation. We only want opacity here. So we're going to say from 0 to 100 to the class dashboard content and with a duration of 0.5, we're going to set up an expo auto and we can play this animation. Okay, this is cool. Let's make it a little longer so we can see the animation better. Perfect, great. And now
that we have the animation, we could also create a cool animation. Well, let's just show this example. Let's publish this. Let's go to, we already are here in this dynamic data page with client-side rendering. If I click here, as you can see, we have, uh, that wasn't that smooth, that was better. So, these type of animations improve the experience of the user. It doesn't just render the information, but it makes it smoother. So this is a simple trick that you can set up, not only based on classes. I will not set this based on a class, but you can set this custom animation based on an attribute, where you can say, custom, like, preload custom, where you can set, this attribute to any element that you want, um, which will make it, super straightforward to set up to multiple components at once. So I hope this makes sense, and I hope you guys will enjoy this tutorial. It's a pretty basic tutorial on how to use CSS transitions and how you can use, basic animations for client-side rendering. Let me know if you would like to see a tutorial using Barbie.js for some cool animations, with GSAP, with staggering things, which makes more sense for those type of scenarios where you want to create really cool animations other than simple animations that will just make the experience better. Thank you very much.